And we are live. It's been a while since we've been here with Jody from Pacific Rim Mortgage. Before we get started, go to coreteamhawaii.com for any real estate needs. You go to the very bottom of the page here, fill out the contact form. So last week we didn't get to questions. Last week I went on a rant about how I was being a bad buyer.
Okay.
And I offered too little and I just didn't do the right things. Mm-hmm. And there was kind of a monologue of a rant. There were some questions that we didn't get to last week. So we're not going to do the, Core Team Hawaii is so great. Here's a review from Mahi and Derek and Kenny and Aiden. We're just going to jump into some of these questions. And then Jody's going to tell us about interest rates. So I'll tell you what, let me do one question. And then I want to ask you where rates are because I know the Fed met.
Yeah.
So date stamp. What's today?
Wait. Hold on 1 second.
Go for it. That's all right.
Anna.
Let
him know to get
what's
started.
the September? It's September what?
Get started. Do the whole
September 24th.
Do the whole thing.
There's a client meeting, so Jody had to give instructions.
Sorry.
September 24th, 2024, the Fed met, and they said we're dropping things by 50 basis points or whatever. And there were some built-in reductions. It went back up. So I want Jody to unpack that. But we're a week behind on questions. So let me look at Dylan's questions or question. I would be interested to know if there are any possibilities for people who only have $100,000 to $200,000 to transfer a payment to Core Team Hawaii for them to invest wisely at their discretion.
Wow.
Oh, no.
Wow.
Obviously, I don't pre-screen these. Dylan, I love your confidence in us. Let me get through the rest of this before I address it. We would really only be able to make the transfer and would need a third party to take over remaining paperwork. For tax purposes here in Japan, we would need to claim it as an office space. It would be tiny, just big enough for 1 or 2 chairs where people can meet and talk business. A week ago, we would have jumped at an opportunity like this, but the fiscal year is now closing for us. We are very small. Assuming this is a real thing, I cannot take any money from anyone. I don't have a broker, securities license, anything like that. So I cannot invest. I don't have a syndication going for accredited or non-accredited investors. That's not a thing for me right now. If you want to invest in a real estate project, the most passive and most simple are REITs, real estate investment trusts, or join a syndication where people are buying this apartment complex or commercial building, whatever, and they're pooling together millions of dollars, and you can put a portion in and invest passively. Now, vet it out, talk to your attorney, do all this stuff. I've invested passively that way, but I do not invest for people. So please don't send me your money. There may be a point in time where we have a Patreon or there's something on YouTube. We've had people, when I've gone live on YouTube, just send us money, and I'll see like a thing pop up. It's like, you've got $20. Don't even do that right now. Maybe one day we'll solicit for some Patreon contributions, but no, please don't send us any money. Let me do one more. Joe Villanueva. Lisa and I would like to know the difference between Ewa Beach and Kapolei. What do you think? What's the difference?
Well, my initial would be one's older, one's newer.
Kinda, yeah. They both have old and
Actually,
new.
they both have new development, but
If you're counting Makakilo and Honokai and all that as Kapolei, then they both have old and new.
Yeah, I feel like Kapolei it's like Kaneohe Kailua.
Okay.
Like Kaneohe's Ewa Beach, Kailua's Kapolei. Like that's almost what I would say. I know,
you
but
can
that's
tell she's not from that side. You can tell
Derek. I mean, just me that's what I would think.
Okay. Ewa Beach is Kaneohe.
Yeah.
How?
Well, to Kapolei. Ewa Beach to Kapolei is Kaneohe to Kailua.
What more?
So Kailua is the place where there's the things, the restaurants,
More things to do.
the yoga, the cute little whatever boutiques, the shopping, the eateries,
I see where you're going.
Swim lessons, soccer practice. Like that's Kapolei.
Whereas Kaneohe, people just living there, got some restaurants and some stuff, but people just kind of living there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Kaneohe has Windward Mall.
Kaneohe has Windward Mall.
Yeah.
It does. It does.
And a bay.
And we're about to have a Foodland Farms.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, bougie.
So
and a Target you guys have.
we also have a Target. Yeah. So
But I
there's
see
the
what you're saying,
bigger
though.
things.
I know what
Those
you're
are
saying.
like
Yeah.
big things, you know, like they're not like, okay, let's walk to, what is that? Easy little cute little breakfast joints and
Oh, yeah.
Over Easy.
Over Easy. Or
Yeah.
Cinnamons. Or
yeah, that's Kailua.
I see where you're going with that. That wouldn't be my explanation. Ewa Beach, from a real estate perspective, tends to be less expensive. And you're like, well, why is that? Because a lot of times you look at the center of a city, you go out and it gets cheaper. And Ewa Beach is a slightly better commute than most of Kapolei.
Mm-hmm.
So why would it be cheaper? And it's those things. Like Kapolei has a mountain, Makakilo, that has views. Kapolei proper is adjacent to all this shopping.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've talked about on the channel. You have the Target Shopping Center, Kapolei Commons. You have a theater. You have Marshall's, Ross.
Kamakana Ali'i.
What's Mahi always like the trifecta? Marshall's, Ross, TJ Maxx, all in the same place, along with Target, along with Starbucks, along with Down to Earth. Now there's
Cheesecake Factory.
That's Kamakana.
Okay.
Yeah. But now there's Island Vintage, but Island Vintage Coffee in Kapolei goes crazy. Like it's busy. It's super cool place to hang out. Good food.
I'm going there tomorrow.
Are you?
On a lunch date.
Oh, and then across is the Village Bottle Shop, which is, we just didn't really have one of those things outside of town, like outside of downtown Honolulu.
Right.
So, yeah, Kapolei is cool and it has more things. And I never thought of it this way because when I grew up in Ewa, Kapolei didn't have much.
Right.
Like they had a Safeway shopping center, a
Yeah.
Zippy's, some theaters, but not much. There's Costco in Kapolei now.
Yep.
But now people who live in Ewa are like, I find myself in Kapolei, like 5 times a week. And I'm like, at first I was like, how come? Why would you go Kapolei? And then I guess it makes sense. Everything's in Kapolei.
Everything's in Kapolei.
But
I
20
wouldn't
years
say
ago-
everything's in Kailua though. So
But yeah, that's that where I didn't know where you're going.
I stay out of Kailua.
But if you want to have a Sunday brunch or
Right.
a Friday night, Kailua more than Kaneohe,
Right.
Kapolei more than Ewa Beach.
Right.
Yeah. So for someone who is, just going into Kapolei or Ewa and leaving, I can see why your perspective, makes sense. Well, next question, we're going to go to Jody, but next question, we're going to talk about some of the questions we have coming up. Good and bad for the military to buy houses when coming to Hawaii. Can they afford it? Is it a good choice? How long would it take, etc.? Taxes for VA disabled. A lender question. So, but first, what's going on with rates?
So the Fed did come out and they decreased rates 50 basis points.
Prior to that, there's already a built-in, like the mortgage rates went down before they even said that, though, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So so prior to that, it was a built-in quarter. Okay. So the market, the mortgage banks, stocks, everyone.
What was the VA rate at before all of the talks of the decrease were? Like 3-4 weeks ago, what was the VA rate at?
5.875.
Okay. And then when all of the the Fed's about to meet, it got down to like 5.1? 5.2?
5. Yeah, right before, but that's because something happened in between.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. So right before the Fed was going to meet, yes, 5.125.
Okay.
But that's because so beginning of August, the expectation was a quarter.
Okay.
And that's because of the inflation data and the previous jobs report.
Okay.
Middle of August, the new jobs report came out. At that point, there was already a shift that said, okay, now we're thinking a half. We're not thinking that the Fed is going to drop the rate, the overnight rate by 0.25. We are thinking they're going to drop it by 0.5.
Okay.
Meaning, come the day of the meeting, had they have dropped it by only 0.25, rates would have gone way up. Because at that point, by the time the meeting occurred, the expectation was already a half.
Okay.
And rates had already been sitting on that half a point reduction expectation from a week prior,
Okay.
even 10 days prior.
I see.
Okay. Now, what happens when the Fed did what everyone thought they were going to do?
First time in a long time they came out and spoke clearly, right? They didn't just signal.
No.
They said we are dropping rates by this much.
Yeah.
It wasn't just inflation, she go.
Right.
It's doing pretty good.
Right.
Like they spoke very decisively, clearly, directly, right?
Right.
Okay.
But then after, there were more meetings,
Okay.
and the Fed made it clear that while there is a chance that there is going to be one more reduction before the end of the year,
Okay.
that they are really taking things slow and they need to see the inflation continue to come down,
Okay.
and coupled with jobs report. So what happened since Wednesday, which it was like
Last Wednesday.
last
so
Wednesday.
So 6 days ago.
Yep. The VA rate was like at a 5.125.
Okay.
So the VA rate is still at a 5.125 at 0 points.
It is? Did the
Oh
convention?
no, sorry. Today it's at 5.25.
Okay.
So that went up an eighth
Okay.
at 0 points.
Okay.
Okay. And then conventional, we were sitting at like 5.75. Today we're at 5.875. So since the meeting, rates went up. And people are really struggling with that.
But only a little for VA.
Yeah, only a little bit.
More for conventional. How come?
Oh, yeah. Conventional always moves more than VA, typically.
Okay. So, what did the jobs report say? Are we not losing enough jobs?
Yes.
We need to lose more jobs. We
Correct.
need more contraction of the economy.
Yes.
It's so irritating trying to follow. And I wrote that offer and I was trying to buy a week or so ago. And that's when rates were at their best. And I
Yeah.
didn't get the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was that little, it was, like maybe a 72-hour window for people that have bought in the past 12 months, 18 months, that
Some refis.
to refi.
Yeah. One of our clients, Max, refied, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Shout out to Max.
sometimes now people are calling me. Like, oh, okay, I thought about it. We want to do it. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, we can still do it, but now these are the numbers. And they're mad.
The numbers could work. They just may not work as well.
They're not as good
Yeah.
as what we already showed them.
And so maybe wait.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm like, just wait, because they will come back.
I like that, right? So a lender, a surgeon, you ask a surgeon if you should cut. They typically are going to say cut. In fact, my son cut his lip open big time. Like big time. It was so scary.
From boxing?
No, he he fell in a chair. It was like 3-4 years ago. He's little. But it didn't cross this border, like your lips border. But it was inside of the lip was just gashed. Anyways, I text my former pediatric healthcare professionals and the main line, and they were like, the surgeon was like, oh yeah, surgery for sure. And then the local doctor was like, I can see why a surgeon would say that.
Right.
And I know this looks really bad, but trust me, no need. And he was right. Point I'm making is, if you wanted to refi today, that's good for Jody. They would like more business, but she's telling you to wait. I think that's pretty cool. When do you think, like someone who's at a 6.5 on VA was up to 6.5, right, in the last 18 months.
Even higher.
High, I got the 7, right? So someone who's at like 6.5 on a VA, and now they'd be at 5.225-ish. I mean, that's good. That's worth
honestly,
refining, but
it
might get better sooner.
Yeah.
Or in the near future, it might get even better.
Yeah.
So you got to decide when you want to spend the money to refi, right?
So what we do is we show them the rate, the prevailing rate.
Yeah.
And we kind of, for the people that aren't like, the 10 people that were like, tell me where to sign.
Yeah.
Those people took advantage of that blip, we call it a blip, the 72-hour blip.
Yeah.
And during that window, I was saying, this is going to be short-lived. If you're going to do it, you got to do it within today, tomorrow. Like, you got to say yes so I can lock you in.
Yeah.
After today, tomorrow, like, rates are going to be moving. So,
Okay.
right, that's what I told them. So the ones that were ready to pull the trigger, they did.
Okay.
As far as now,
Yeah, when do you think the next people refi? If I'm at a 6.5, Derek Wagashi is a 6.5, and I'm like, Jody, when should I refi? When is your best guess?
soon.
Like before the end of the year?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. Before the end of the year. And even with a 5.25, a 6.5% homeowner is recuperating in less than 6 months.
Okay.
So you're having your monthly savings.
Yeah.
You get to have your cake and eat it too, and recuperate any of the fees that are not coming out of your pocket within 6 months.
Yeah.
And you get to skip 1 to 2 months of mortgage payments. So what if I was to add in those skips?
Because when you refi, it's same. Like when you sign, it's
Right.
Yeah.
So if we add in those, which I don't, when I'm walking someone through a recuperation, I explain to them how we're not counting those 2 months of paying $4,000 a month.
Those 2 months matter though.
Right, they really matter. But I definitely
I didn't
bring
think
it home.
of that.
Yeah, that's $8K.
I would just refi every time.
That's $8,000.
I'm always refining that. Well, you still have to pay taxes and insurance,
You still have
but
to
you're
pay
not paying
taxes.
principal and interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, taxes and insurance are paid incrementally every month to the lender. So when you don't have a lender payment, we just recollect that appropriately when we
Yeah.
do the refi.
Right.
So what you do have to pay no matter what are your HOA dues.
Right.
Yeah. But so for most people, when we bring that's like the cherry on the top. Like, okay, and then you get to skip this. But if I was to count that, people are recuperating in less than 1 month.
Like a month. Yeah.
Less than a month.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I try not to count that, right? But
It's probably hard. So it's very hard for most people to follow because they're like, wait, recuperate? What? Well, when you buy a house, it matters when you sign. What's today? September 20 something. So September, October, November 1st is going to be your first payment.
right.
But if I sign like October 4th, then October, November, December 1st. So I almost have 2 months of no mortgage payment.
Right.
And that's cool when that happens. It's not that everyone should move. Like, I'm not going to lose a deal or risk losing a deal to sign, 10 days later and push back payments. But you at least get a month of no payment. And that matters because unless you're keeping the house and or that loan for 30 years, that's instant savings. You realize that savings that month because that's a month. Say you're going to be here for 5 years or you're local, you're going to keep that house for 5 years. Out of the 60 months, the 60 months is 5 years. That's only 59 times you pay instead of 60. Like that's, you realize the savings. So when you refi, I guess same. You get to add a little period of no payments. And then if you take that money and don't go to Disneyland
Right.
and put it towards the cost of the refi, the refi is kind of free.
Right.
I never thought about that.
And then the other thing most people don't know is you don't have to pay out of pocket for a refinance. So there are fees, 100%. There's a title fee, there's an escrow fee.
Yeah.
However, that typically will get added to the loan.
Yeah.
And most of the people I talk to, they are very surprised when I tell them that.
Well, because Dave Ramsey will tell you to not
Pay it out of pocket.
Yeah, to pay it out of pocket.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't.
It's silly.
There's
when
no
you
way.
when you look at the numbers, it doesn't make sense. I'm like, and I will also do that comparison because I'm like, okay, if you come to the table with $8K, here's what your monthly payment is.
Okay.
And then if you just finance $8K more, here's what your monthly payment is. And they're like, so my payment's like $22 more. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
So most people are like, I think I'm good with the $22 higher payment so that I don't have to pay $8,000 out of pocket.
Right. Yeah.
Almost nobody picks the other option.
This is another thing to highlight waiting, because we have so many clients we have so many buyers. So with having so many buyers, some of them are, well, I'm going to wait for rates to drop. And I hate a lot of the adages and the oversimplifications, but unfortunately they're true. you want the house now and you want to refi later. That's why I'm bullish on buying a house now.
Right.
By the way, if anyone's watching this, you have a home in Mililani Mauka, a medium to bigger size home, let me know. I'm trying to buy one. But you don't want to be in the bloodbath when rates go back to 4.5. Like if that happened overnight right now, of the 100 buyers we have who are like, I'll buy when rates improve, 90 something of them couldn't buy.
Right.
You won't be able to compete.
Right.
Because people with a bunch of money and a bunch of backing, like they're going to be taking the houses. You're
and
not
that's
going to be able
why,
to buy them.
yeah. I mean, that's why this is such a unique time where they have come down substantially compared to 4, 5, 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And we're still able to put your best foot forward as a buyer.
Yeah.
And even, you know, not feel like you're just getting the crap beat out of you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to get bad again. I think in the next, for me, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I'm trying to buy right now, and I definitely want to buy before the spring season comes. FYI, I logged in on my phone after, so if you put questions prior, Kenji may be able to prompt me. I didn't see him. My first question, and I don't know why, Freddie says, once you have Asian, you don't want to go back to Caucasian. I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why. Is that an Australian flag? Sorry, he's probably cussing me. He's like, you don't know your flags. Elizabeth says, are there any jobs on the islands? Of course, there's always jobs and always opportunities. If you see them, work for them, grow for them, and grind for them, for sure. I think, the way Jody and I think, sometimes totally different, but a lot of ways is aligned too. And I think you put us in any state, and we're going to, be able to make it.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to figure something out. Take away lending, take away real estate. Some other thing's going to work. But I understand I didn't always have that perspective. But I hope that you can grow towards that perspective as well and be empowered to think that way. If you guys have questions, throw them in the chat. Let's go to Marcos. Good and bad for military to buy houses when coming to Hawaii. Can they afford it? Is it the best choice? How long would it take? I don't know for Marcos, I don't know if you mean how long would it take to buy the home or how long would it take for it to make sense and be a profitable decision. Let's talk about both. Buying the home can be as short as a month to 6 weeks. You can call us right now. We'll introduce you to Jody's team. We get pre-approved. We start writing offers. Escrow can take 30-ish days. Yeah. Sometimes take 45. Now, if you have a home on the mainland that you need to refi to conventional or sell so you can free up VA entitlement and be ready to go here, those are reasons why you want to reach out months in advance so that we can strategize those things. Good and bad. Unfortunately, so many lenders and so many agents who they're just not as skilled and nuanced will just say, always buy, always buy, always buy. And unfortunately, they're usually correct. I wish they were wrong more often just so I could be right more often. But they're typically right because typically in a 3 or a 4 year window in the Hawaii housing market history, when you buy 36, 48, 60 months later, you're profitable. If you aren't profitable at 36, we have a whole video on this math. Jody and I did it on a whiteboard. If you hold it, even if you hold it for a loss, the math it catches up with you, and it's always a good decision. Like if you bought, let's say 2008, right? If you bought in 2005, held till 2008, and the cliff had already happened, but then you held until 20 teens, you were glad you kept it and you were profitable. There's exceptions. There's buildings that HOAs went up, and there's trees fell on houses and things like that. But for the most part, island-wide, the market was better. And then if you bought in 2005 and kept it until 2021, 2022, and let's say you're like, oh, but then I didn't get to buy in Virginia at my next duty station or Texas, your freaking home you kept in Hawaii is worth $1 million more. So it was a good decision. It'll eventually be the right decision. Now, for his question, how long would it take? we talked about how long it would take to buy. How long would it take for it to be the right decision? It's almost always the right decision at the time you leave, 36, 48
Right.
months. Sometimes you got to wait a little longer. So we talk about enduring that negative cash flow delta if you find yourself in that position.
And there's things that we can do, that we do to make sure that you have that exit strategy going in, as far as understanding what the property can rent for.
Yeah.
We don't want you buying a place that, you know, the outgo is $4,000 a month and you're thinking that you can rent it for $4,000 a month. So
it's not, if you're 100% loan to value, meaning nothing down, you're not renting it for your payment.
Right. So we just want you to like, hey, here's the other houses that are similar, that are renting, and this is how much they're renting for. So let's, you know, utilize that as some sort of a delta so that you are comfortable in your investment.
Yeah.
AKA the difference between the mortgage payment and the rent that you're going to be collecting.
There are a few exceptions. I say if you buy it zero down, you're not renting it for cash flow. There are a few exceptions. I've seen people buy house hacks, so these monster houses on their VA loan that have like, you could sleep 13. And so when they leave, they got their whole ship, you know, like guys from their ship renting rooms and they cash flow. There are exceptions, you know, for you bigger pockets listeners and investors. But for the most part, your traditional standalone home, you're going to rent it to another family on one lease.
Right.
It's not going to cash flow unless you put a lot of money down.
But if you are going to do that and you're going to utilize some elbow grease in terms of like renting to 3 single guys, your 3-bedroom house instead of renting to a family, you know, that will make that delta smaller.
It will. And again, you're probably going to refi, so that's going to get you closer to your cash flow. It's going to stop the bleeding a bit. And you can negative cash flow for a while and still the appreciation. When you have $1 million home that appreciates 5%, because it might have a bad year. It's not that profitable this year. But if it appreciates 5% on $1 million, that's $50,000. And then let's keep it another year. We did good. Another 5%, that's more than $50,000. It's, you know, $50,500 or whatever. Like holding real estate in Hawaii it tends to always work.
Right. So the growth,
very few asterisks. Yeah.
the growth is so much more than your deficit
Yeah.
or your investment that you're making into the property.
But you got to make sure you're not like some people. This is the perfect example I always use. Like you're an E4, you're gonna get out, you're gonna move back home to Texas. You're gonna have 3 kids in 1 year. So your spouse can't work. You're only using your GI Bill. Like you probably not gonna be able to make it through the negative cash flow season. But a lot of people can, and the maths.
Yeah.
Alberto Lopez, what would be property taxes for a buyer with 100% VA disability? For $1 million property.
$300 a year.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter the value of the property.
Is it infinite? Is it you're in a $13 million property? Yeah. It's not like on the home exemption. I actually never thought about that. You know, I never thought about it. So you could have $10 million property, but if you're 100% disabled, it's the $300 filing fee.
Correct. I'm 99% positive.
Well, we can.
Now I need to think about
text.
Right.
Yeah, we can. He might be watching. We know. We can certainly find out from the source of the source. But yeah, Hawaii is to answer your question. Hawaii is one of those states like Texas where with 100% VA disability, you're probably not paying property taxes, and there is an administrative fee, so it's not zero.
Right,
Yeah.
and there is a caveat. Which is that you cannot file for that, even though you can prove that you're 100% disabled until you own the property. So there is a period of time in which those taxes are going to have to be made.
Oh, good point. Yeah. Yeah, with like your closing docs and settlement statement, right? Yeah. I think about that. Lender question. How much reserves are needed if we have multiple rental properties in Texas to qualify? I asked because in New York, they asked us to have about $30,000 for each property in reserves, but I know in New York, it's tougher to get lending.
The answer is 6 months worth of your principal, interest, property taxes, and homeowner's insurance. and HOAs if you have any association dues. So whatever your outgo is.
So PITI HOA, 6 months of that. So if they're talking about rental properties in Texas, so say mortgage is $3,000 a month, no HOA, 3 times 6, 36,000. So they said 30,000 for a property in Texas. So it's probably like a $2,600 mortgage or something. Yeah. And they say, let's address this. They say, I know lending can be harder to get in New York. People say things of, it's like, make comments that imply local restrictions. But I think that's actually less common than people think, because lenders are regulated nationally, and then Fannie, Freddie, Jenny are national conglomerates. So typically it's not that different in a state versus another state, right? Unless they're like, in Arkansas, like on Big Island, they have volcano zones.
Right.
Or in Arkansas, they have like a tornado zone or something.
California earthquake insurance.
Yeah.
And also even the ones that are creating location-specific stuff, like our portfolio here, portfolio loans here, they follow Fannie. Like they make 90% of their rules are following Fannie.
Right.
And then they're like, oh, and this. And that. Like, so they're only adding in a couple things.
I gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, so when Jody says portfolio, so those are loans that are not necessarily being sold off into the secondary market. You might bank with a certain, with Farmers Bank of Central Arkansas, and they might say, well, Mr. Jones, we can give you $1 million. Your family's been with us forever. You hold your billions with us. Like, we'll give you $1 million loan for your house. They don't have to conform to all these rules.
Right.
But they generally do use them as a guideline and add restrictions, but they have the freedom to deviate if they wanted to.
Yeah, and they take away a couple, right? So a bunch of the ones that have the insurance issue, they'll decide that they're just going to do. So those are decisions that they can make.
Yeah. All right. Are there any one-bedroom studio apartments available? How much they typically sell for? And can I secure one before I get to Island? Yeah, for sure. We're going to be careful about this insurance thing that Jody alluded to. Jody, can you provide me some information about DSCR loans as well? Do you do DSCR in portfolio?
Yes. So the DSCR is going to be the debt service coverage ratio. And all that means is that we don't have to factor in your personal liabilities. What we do is we look at the rent roll. So it's more like a commercial loan. We look at how much you can get for rent. Yeah. And then we compare that to the mortgage payment for the property you're trying to buy.
So if I'm like, Jody, I want to buy this, and you're like, Derek, you don't have tax returns or whatever, what would be a good example? Like,
yeah, like
your credit's not good, or
not credit. You
DSCR
have
credit still matters.
Yeah. So like your debt to income ratio is 100%.
Yeah, like I'm leveraged out.
Yeah.
But I'm like, yeah, but I'm gonna get to buy this for $500,000, and I can rent it for $20,000 a month, and it's provable. It actually has a tenant in place at $20,000 a month. The debt service coverage, that's a good investment for someone, right?
Right.
For private, like, where's that money coming from typically?
I mean, ultimately, it's still smaller banks.
Like a Bank of Hawaii.
Yeah.
Or, do they do DSCRs? No.
But that doesn't mean they don't fund something that does.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
So it's still coming from a bank.
Yeah,
but it's just that bank that has convinced their investment portfolio to why this is a good loan.
Yeah.
And some people, I mean, DSCR loans are crazy right now, where the interest rates are like 8%.
Yeah.
That's low.
That's low.
That's
yeah.
low.
So if the deal's good, and
like investment 20% down, is like 7.5.
Wow. What would you think that would, if investment 20% down were at 7.5? What would you traditionally think a DSCR loan would be at? Like
Like,
9?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least 9.5, at least 2% higher.
But typically, if so people thinking about DSCRs, if you don't have some screaming deal where you're buying this warehouse and it rents for 20 grand because you have a contract with Amazon or something, just a regular home in Ewa Beach, if you want to do a DSCR right now, you're probably going to have to put like 40 to 45, 50%.
You need a big down.
Yeah. You're
So
only going to be
that's
able
where
to
it's like
finance like half-ish, right?
Right. Like the loan structure allows for 20%.
Yeah.
Right. So people ask me that, like, what's the minimum down with the DSCR?
Technically
So the minimum
20.
down is 20. But when we put pen to paper and you're sending me properties, which is why I'm always like, well, send me some properties. Because then we can actually give you a real life example, right? So when they start sending me properties, I'm like, okay, well, this can actually only rent for like maybe like $5K.
Unless you have a screaming deal, and or you just are leveraged but have a bunch of cash, so you want to do a DSCR for that reason, the DSCR is just typically not going to work. Like how many DSCRs do you do?
You just need to have a big down. Like if you had a big down and you're like, I can't or won't deal with the paperwork side of it, I can't qualify or I don't want to.
Yeah.
But you have a big down, then DSCR is what you do. So there's a lot of people that do 1031s that end up DSCRing.
Because they have so much equity, they're rolling into the next thing, right?
Right. They have a huge down. And there's other people that are similar to our self-employed buyers, which we found a better solution for them. But they would be way open to a DSCR. Like they would be like, sure, we'll do DSCR, right? But we actually found a bank statement loan that's even better for them, better interest rate. And the bank statement, like documentation component works for them.
Okay. Cool. You got to get in the
Yeah.
appointment, yeah. So, all right. So, Jody is stepping out. She has to go into a signing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Clients come first. So, I'm going to put that there. Should I even move? Go in the middle. Okay. All right. So, Jody has to get into a signing. Clients come first. Tuesdays are actually our work day. And that's why we don't film our long-term YouTube, like our long-form YouTube on these days, but we jump in and do it live. It's a part of our heavy admin and meeting day. Jody, as a lender, how do you compute rental income? Is it based on what applicant tells you or you do your own due diligence? Oh, well, I know the answer to this. Maybe, partially. I mean, it could vary with different loan types, different lenders, depending on who she's brokering it to, et cetera. But we oftentimes do those comps for her and say, hey, this would rent for, $3,000 a month or whatever. Of course, similar to like when you're talking to an appraiser, it's like, this home should be worth $800,000 if I'm on the listing side. And I know we're reaching, but I'm trying to support $800,000. We want to get you the most rental income you can, but trust that the person who's going to lend you the large quantity of money, they're doing their own rental comps as well. So it starts with us. We're the gophers. Whether it be agents and or lenders who provide rental income predictions, but they verify. They trust but verify, right? Aloha Mahe. Hey, Nikki. Mahe's actually not here right now. She had to be at a signing. She would be here. But she had to be at a signing right now. So Mahe's not here. Shout outs to our clients, Brian and Danielle. Let me see. Travis Harper. Are there any one bedroom? Oh, we already asked that question. Okay, so I am going to go to this week's questions. Solana says, I'm interested in hearing about VA loan home purchases. Well, I wish we had specific questions. What I'll tell you about the VA loan is it's typically simpler. It's typically not so complicated. And efforts to market and draw you in, lenders, agents, etc., will tout VA specialist. It rarely is that complicated. The VA loan, veterans or active duty members typically, especially active duty, they have very easy to follow money. It's public government money, socialist money for, just to be frank. And so you can log into a system. You can look up how much an E5 makes if they're married. Their W-2s are sent to them. They're clean. You can go into PeopleSoft or Direct Access and download their last statements. Their job offer is in the form of orders. Like, it's all very verifiable. and the debt to income, meaning, how much running bills or debt do you have versus how much you make, you can buy more with a VA loan. When I bought my house, we only used my wife's income because years ago my books on this 1099 income side were not clean. And rather than clean them up all in that moment, we just used my wife's income because the debt to income could be pushed up to like 60-something%. You can't do that with a conventional loan. The VA loan's typically easier. Now, where does it get complicated? Partial, like member to member. You got a husband and wife. They both bought homes in Virginia and Texas, and now you're member to member, both have partial entitlement. You're buying a piece of land that was 1 acre. They cut it up into 8 pieces. Now it's a condominium property regime. There's technically an HOA, although no one meets or has meetings. Everyone forgot there was an HOA, but technically there are documents filed and recorded with the community. You have to dig those up, and sometimes a lender will have to work with everyone to amend them to get it VA approved. There are certain rare circumstances where a VA loan gets complicated, but for the most part, it's just easier. It's a better interest rate. You can buy more if you so choose, if it makes sense. It's not that complicated. Nikki says she just showed me a place the other day and she's so gracious and knowledgeable. Yes, Nikki. Now I know who you are. I didn't know your last name, but I do. Shout outs to you, Nikki. Mahi's great, and I hope we find you, get you the perfect place soon. Watch out, your name's on here, so the other agents that watch our channel, they're gonna be trying to Google you. Makes sense. Thanks, Derek. Thank you very much. Randy, my daughter is stationed in Ohio. Can she purchase an investment property in Hawaii in hopes she can be stationed in Hawaii? Yes, not with the VA loan. If she's stationed in Ohio, meaning she's military, can she buy in anticipation of getting stationed there? If you're going to buy at a future duty station, you have to have orders to said duty station, or your income will not be approved for said duty station. When can you buy? When you're approaching PCSing, you can buy 60 days in advance with some caveats. So if on January 1st, I'm going to be stationed in Hawaii, I can close on my loan November 1st, because the 60-day threshold is you're not allowed to use government products or even conventional primary residence loan products to be an investor. And so they had to apply a time threshold. Hey, if you're going to buy this thing, when are you going to move into it? It's 60 days in almost all cases. For the VA loan, it's 60 days. One of the, I just got a text message that rattled me. One of the things that, one of the caveats to that, and shout outs to Paul, we help Paul, if your spouse is moving here in advance, so your spouse is taking a job 6 months prior to you, but you have orders for the summer, you could buy 60 days prior to your spouse's arrival and job starting here, et cetera. So there are caveats, but for the most part, we rarely do that. It's 60 days prior to your report date. VA doesn't do rentals. Yeah, you can't buy a property with the VA loan as an investment property. In fact, if you buy it, even if it's for your daughter in Ohio, if you buy it in Ohio, she uses it as an investment, moves out of it, and didn't get restationed by the government more than 50 miles away. I think it's 50 miles the threshold. We don't deal with it on Oahu, but if the government's moved you from like Eglin Air Force Base to whatever Air Force Base in Florida, you get to move out of your home even if you just bought it. But if it's not greater than, I believe, 50 miles, that's mortgage fraud. You can't use the VA loan to create a rental portfolio unless you are using it as a primary residence and then move out of it after a year. So, aloha. Oh, Josue. What's up, Josue? Let me get RL's questions first. What are your thoughts on assumable loans for people who are non-VA eligible? Is it common for someone to attempt to assume a loan even if they're not VA eligible? It almost will not. Well, first, VA assumptions don't happen very often to begin with. Secondly, and the reason being is there's a lot of cash that you need to make a VA assumption work, usually. If I have a VA loan and you want to assume it from me, if you don't have, I can let you assume it. Like, I can let my civilian cousin assume my loan, but it ties up my VA eligibility. They'll never be able to, like, I won't have the VA eligibility freed up unless they use their VA eligibility. And if they're a civilian, it screws me, basically. So it's very rare to find someone offering an assumption to a civilian who doesn't have VA eligibility, or even a veteran or active duty member who doesn't have available eligibility. So, yeah, not common. In theory, there could be some other non-VA loans that are assumable, but very, very few. I would say less than 5%, maybe less than 3%. Josue, what's up? Aloha, Derek. When looking for an investment in Hawaii, do you target places to flip or rentals? I have flipped. Rentals, the way you're thinking, just typically don't work in Hawaii. If I were going to just look for cash flow, look to buy a place and rent it out and get cash flow, I'd do that elsewhere. But moving into a primary residence, waiting until the market and the finances are such that I can cash flow that thing when I move out of it, that's a way to build a local, rental portfolio in Hawaii. It's still not the best place to do it. It's just expensive here, and the rent doesn't match the cost of the homes. Justin Daniels. Now, what I will say is it was better years ago. It's worse now. It's way worse now than it was a few years ago. I just moved to Hawaii, and Mahe and Aiden, have been great, working with me and helping me find a location to purchase. I'm looking at the Kapolei area. Justin, thank you. Yes, I know your name. We've come up in our meetings. I look forward to meeting you. And Mahe and Aiden are a great 1-2 punch. Thank you for the comment. Randy Wong. Did I get it? Oh, yeah, I did get it, yeah. Erwin Corpuz. What's up, Derek? I'm thinking of investing in the Tennessee market, June Lake area, new development. What you think? Well, let's go to my map. June Lake, Tennessee. I know Tennessee pretty well in Williamson, Davidson, and Murray counties. I know a little bit about Knoxville. June Lake, Tennessee. Let's see on the map here. But I don't know. I don't see June. Is June Lake a part of Spring Hill? Is it? Because there's a small part here on the map that's like North Spring Hill Thompson Station. Is that what you're thinking of buying? If so, my late father, who just passed a couple months ago, I love you, Dad. He lived like over here. Wait, am I right? Yeah. Yeah, like over here. And so that's really close. I would always go drive up here through Spring Hill. Traffic sucks. Go in here on Thompson Station, and there's a road that goes through there called Doc Robertson Road. It's beautiful. Just rolling hills, pastures, fences, horses. Like, it's just amazing. And I loved so much going there. I'm interested in June Lake. Oh, yeah, Spring Hill. Erwin, hit me up. I'd be interested to see what you're underwriting over there. I know the market decent. If you go back to my map, here in Thompson Station, years ago, I was gonna buy these townhomes for around $200,000, but it would have taken everything I had to make the down payment. And actually, in hindsight, maybe I wouldn't even been able to have the reserves to buy it. But I was like, $200,000, that's crazy. Those same townhomes right now are probably worth $600,000. I should have bought them. But I didn't. So in general, this is one of the more booming parts of America. What's happening to the greater Nashville area, I heard someone put it well. What's happening to the greater Nashville area now is kind of like what happened to the greater Atlanta area 30, 40 years ago. every little bit of farmland and everything just getting bought up around Nashville as the estate sales happen, the property tax for the conveyance tax, however it works. Builders, and there's so many builders just building 100 homes, 200 homes, 500 homes all around here. It's crazy. So I'm bullish on the area. I'm bullish on that area. And actually, I have a couple of agents. I am well connected with a handful of agents in that area. One of them, her and her family own a few rentals a little south from June Lake where you're looking. So anyways, I'm going to get off of June Lake, but hit me up if you want to talk about Spring Hill and if you need an agent over there. I have two that come to mind. And there's a property manager I met as well. In and Out is opening there. That's a good sign. If that's another reason, like knowing what I know now, 10 years ago when I wanted to invest in that area, they had just built a Walmart in the middle of nothing. Walmart's not done with their money, right? They built a Walmart in the middle of nothing. And then they built this Target shopping center. And when I'd go visit my dad once or twice a year, it would always be empty. There's like this big Target and all these shops and nothing there. Well, don't you think the people with all these hundreds of millions of dollars know better than we do? Should just bought a house. Should bought every house I could because it went up like crazy in that area. Let me go back to our questions. Do we have any more questions? Oh, Brenda. I'm curious about ownership of a condo at Olina, investment potential and negatives. Okay, Brenda. What I'm going to say, and I don't want anyone else but our team and our viewers to know this. I was always bullish on Olina Kai because in a minute, I'm going to go to my map. So I was always bullish on Olina Kai Golf Estates. All right, I'm on my map here. Kenj can switch over. So when you go into Olina, you're going on the freeway, you turn in. There's usually a pretty girl in a dress waving at you right here. That's so like sterile, but don't you enjoy it? I mean, just, hi. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm in Olina on a resort. Well, one of the most popular communities, because it's right by all the shops, you can walk over to the ABC store and restaurants and shopping. You go through here. This is Coconut Plantation. I wasn't always bullish on Coconut Plantation. You have exterior stairs going up to second floors rather than interior. Just interior feels nicer, right? You're close to all this shopping, but if you're too close, noisy, transient, annoying for living. If I'm there for, a month, no big deal. But if I'm living right next to, live music at Monkey Paw, it could be rather annoying, right? If you go over here, see this Co'io Drive? And when we do these lives, I got to switch to make my mouse like huge or something. But when you're like that, it gets big. Well, when you go over here to Co'io Drive, this is Olina Kai Golf Estates. That's where I bought and own, but our insurance is going up. We don't know how that's going to affect assessments or our HOA and stuff yet, but it's concerning. These are also way less per square foot than Coconut Plantation. Olina Kai Golf Estates, it's just cheaper for the same size, way cheaper. Both are 30-day rental zones, so you can do 1 month. The associations don't mess around, so don't try and cheat that. But Coconut, as we understand it, it has a clean insurance plan and is not. I'm negotiating in there right now. Look, Leilani, if you're watching this, just tell me you saw it because I think I did more research than you, or otherwise you would have been using this against me. Hopefully you're not watching, and hopefully just my clients and I know that the insurance is good in Coconut. Now, the price is still very different, though. For what you're going to buy for 1.3-ish, 1.3 and some change in here, for a similar, not the exact same thing, but for a similar thing in here, I mean, we're talking more $1,900,000 something. to $1 million, and you're gonna pay 300 grand, 350, 400 grand more for a similar thing in here. Now in here, this community in Coconut is more mature. It's the trees and street. It just feels more like a community. Olina Kai feels a little sterile. It's like street, townhouse, street, townhouse. It's also a longer walk to things depending on where you are in this community. So to Brenda's question, I want to know about owning in Olina. Very, very involved HOAs, very neighbor politic-y, if you find yourself getting sucked into that. Very outperform the market. It's outperformed the market. You know, I bought 2 years ago as the market shifted downwards. We're at 2. We're over 2 now. As the market shifted downwards, it's continued to appreciate because Olina is this resort with all this optimism. They are going to be building. Where's Lagoon 4? In this open field here, they're going to be building more stuff. So I understand this Paradise Cove Luau is eventually going to be, you know, high-end shopping and restaurants, etc. So Olina, the Wailea of Oahu, is, you know, I'm bullish in the long term. And even for myself, in Olina Kai, I almost sold. And I know other agents who sold. I know an agent who had someone else call me to say, hey, do you know when you're going to sell? Because I'm going to sell, and we're right next to each other. People bailed out of this community, and people were selling. You know what? My association fee is going to go up probably because my insurance is increasing. But will I regret having kept this thing? Or will I regret if I had sold this thing in 10 years? Will I have regretted it? Yes, I think so. I've outperformed the market with Olina. I've gotten better cash flow than I would anywhere else. Now, that doesn't mean it cash flows well. Doesn't mean it cash flows good compared to some other state. But I've gotten better cash flow for Oahu. I've still been negative both years that I've owned it. But the appreciation has just been good. So I would buy in Olina. I would likely, it depends on your situation too, right? Are you just looking for, I'm going to hire an Airbnb manager, I'm going to buy it cash, and I just want the most per month I can get for what I spent, cash on cash return? Coconut's still probably not it. It's a cooler place to own, and it's arguably a better community for like having trees and walking paths within your community. There's 2 different pools, but it just depends on what your objectives are. If you want an ocean view, you need to either be in beach villas or Kailani over here. You need to be in this area, or where's beach villas at? Right here. If you don't care about proximity to anything and you just want a less expensive one that you could do 30-day rentals on, then you're going back here to Hillside. You're going back in this small cluster of homes here. Still pretty cool pool and barbecue area. Enough permanent residents to have a little bit of a community, and we got the most speed bumps though. I would say too, not everyone's going to talk about this. This Google Earth was, try to look at, this was probably taken in the winter, right? It's all green because you have more of a fire hazard over here too. If fires were to spark in this field, which can happen. So there's nuances to Olina. I really like to talk to you, Brenda, and understand what's your goal and objective, and you know, why do you want to buy in Olina? Are you going to live there? Are you going to invest there? Are you going to hire a property manager? Is it all cash? Is it a loan, etc.? Looks like we're in a position to pack it up. I didn't realize how late it was. I actually got to go get my kids. I got to rush. Thank you guys for watching. See you next week.